Good morning. It falls to me this week to talk about John 15. It's a very familiar passage. But before I do, I think it's important to look at when Jesus is speaking and why Jesus is speaking. Now, many of you will know that I've just lost my stepdad. As I'm filming this, his funeral is tomorrow. And because of COVID, I couldn't go and say goodbye to him. We knew that he was dying, and I couldn't have that chance to say the last things that I wanted to say to him. So I wrote them down, and my mum read them out to him in one of his lucid moments as the end was drawing near. Now, I picked those words really carefully. There were things that I needed to say, and I made sure that I said them. The context is similar as we look at John 15. It's Thursday night. Jesus is speaking to his disciples at the Last Supper. He knows that in less than 24 hours he will be dead. He's choosing his words carefully here. The time for idle chit-chat has gone. These are the things that he really needs to say to his disciples. Now, he uses this vine metaphor, and if I'm honest, I don't really understand vines. We don't come from a vine growing culture. I have seen one, but I've never grown one. I've certainly never harvested one. I'm not familiar with them in any way, shape or form. But Jesus' original audience would have been. I'm going to bend the passage slightly today and think about it as a tree rather than as a vine. Jesus says, I am the vine, or I am the tree as I understand it better. And my Father is the gardener. You are the branches. Every branch that bears fruit I prune so that it would be more fruitful. It makes more sense to me if I think of it as a tree because that's what I'm familiar with. You, like us, probably have done some pruning in lockdown. We've pruned a lot of our house. We've pruned our shed. We've pruned our cellar. We've pruned our attic. I've pruned my wardrobe. We've pruned some of our shopping habits. We decided we didn't want to buy things with excess single-use plastic on it. I'm now the proud owner of a bamboo toothbrush. It's all an act of pruning, of looking at which are the parts of my life that I'm not bearing fruit, that I need to pick up and throw away, and which are the parts that I could be more fruitful in. I'm sure you've probably got similar experiences in your household. Equally, I think during lockdown we've been able to look at the world and see parts of that which need pruning. The Black Lives Matter movement is an outpouring of part of our society that needs some drastic pruning. The role of the police, the way we treat the poor and the vulnerable, they're all issues that have been highlighted during this time that need some serious pruning. Members of the government, perhaps you could argue, also need pruning. And I'll let you think about that and fill in the specifics. But in those discussions, the discussions that we've had about the wider society and the discussions that we've had about our own lives, thinking about this form of pruning, what we have done is put ourselves in the role of the gardener. That needs pruning. That needs pruning. I'm going to cut that down. But the passage is really clear here. God is the gardener. We are the branches. In some ways, this is similar to what Will talked about a couple of weeks ago in John 13, when Jesus says, "Let me wash your feet." It's the same message here. Let me prune you. Let me prune you. The question isn't, where would you like to be pruned? The question isn't, can I prune you? What Jesus says is, let me prune you. My Father is the gardener. You're not. And this is troubling to me because if I'm honest, I like the role of the gardener. I like being in control. I like being in control of my own life, and I like thinking that I'm right when I look at our society. I know what needs doing and I can get on and do it. Equally, if I'm honest, I quite like the role of the tree. Here I am with my important life, holding everything up. Look at all these things that depend on me. I like it. It's a comfortable role. But the passage is clear. God is the gardener. Jesus is the tree, the vine. We are just the branches. Might it be that God wants to prune things in our life that we haven't considered need pruning? I'll give you an example from Lent this year. Like many Christians, I decided what I was giving up for Lent this year, and I was just talking casually with a friend about it, and she said to me, "What has God asked you to give up?" And I was quite taken aback because the honest answer was, I don't know, I haven't asked him. And so I made a point of sitting down and saying, God, what do you want me to give up for Lent? And straight away I felt in my heart the answer, I want you to give up fiction, Claire. And I was completely taken aback. Fiction? I had never heard of anyone giving up fiction for Lent before, and I love reading. I'm a book a week kind of girl. The thought of giving up fiction was completely alien to me. I never would have thought that in my wildest dreams. And so that was what made me think that this was probably God speaking to me. I heard of somebody who felt that God was asking her to give up worship music for Lent. And again, I was somewhat incredulous. Why on earth would God ask someone to do that? But could it be that because he is the gardener and we are just the branches, that he is seeing things that we're not seeing, and what we need to do is submit to his lordship? And so I duly gave up fiction for Lent. I never would have thought that was part of my life that needed pruning. Clearly it was. So the question for us this morning is, God, where do you want to prune me? Where do you want to prune us as a church, as a wider church, as a nation? And that's not an easy question to always ask. If you're anything like I am, you like being in control. But if we don't ask that question, if we don't let God play his role as the gardener, then we end up firstly overgrown and secondly, ultimately dead. We all want to be fruitful. We don't all want to be pruned to get there. And I think it's worth pointing out here that the fruit that Jesus is talking about doesn't equal our prosperity or our success. The fruit that he's talking about is his glory. We exist for him. So, can I encourage you this week to spend some time with God? And if I'm being honest, you probably need to do it on your knees and ask Him, Lord, where do you want to prune me? And if that seems a frightening concept to you, if that's something that makes you uncomfortable, then you need to remember that God the gardener is the good, good Father. That just as a parent disciplines the child that they delight in, God disciplines us because He loves us. Pruning is an act of love here. You wouldn't hesitate to let somebody you loved take something out of your eye or pull a splinter from your arm or your hand. This morning, don't hesitate to let God have His way in you to encourage you into the fruitfulness that He has for you.